Hi, this is Lynn Wizicki from Lynn Wizicki Photography, and I am going to show you how to use Topaz Glow to enhance your realistic photographs. I have a picture here in Photoshop that I've actually done some processing on in Lightroom and brought it over here to Photoshop, and I want to make this little fairy a little more contrasty so that she shows up a little more intensely against this darker background. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a layer using Command J on a PC. That would be Control J, and I'm going to go up to the filters and bring up my Topaz Glow. Now you may be familiar with Topaz Glow as a third-party plugin that does some crazy things to your pictures, but you can also use it to actually increase the contrast on your image. As you can see here, we've got a very strange looking image added onto our screen. What this does is there's a lot of different things you can see over here on the right hand side that we can make it look very neon-y. We can, make it look dark. We have airbrush. We have, brilliant fibers. We have a lot of silly things that we can do. But the one preset that I really like and I use a lot is called Fur and Feathers, and it's supposedly, it was created to use on animals and birds, but I found it works really well with a lot of subjects because it kind of adds some extra contrast. And as you can see from the image right now, it is pretty contrasty. But what we could actually make some adjustments by clicking on, you'll see I clicked on this little icon here on the screen, and it opens up the panel where you can actually make some changes. And I occasionally I'll do a little bit here, but usually these presets are pretty close to what I'm looking for. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come down here in the left-hand corner, and it's the blend mode, which is very similar to what's in Photoshop, is at normal. That's the default. But I usually like to use overlay. And what that does is it kind of gives us a dark feeling. And the picture is just a little bit darker than normally would be, but it also gives a lot more contrast by adding the lines that Glow is known for. Now this is a little intense, and I might use this because this is sort of a fantasy kind of image, but I think I'm going to back it off a little bit and see over here in the left-hand corner in the bottom is a strength slider. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this thing off about 50%. And so you'll see that it doesn't look a whole lot different, but when I go up here to the top of the screen and use the button that says Original, it goes back to the original, and then you get your processed picture. So that's the original, that's the processed. That's your original, and that's the processed. You can see there's a great deal of contrast. Now, if you were doing, documenting something like, you were doing photojournalism, or if you were, for example, taking a picture of a flower or something that you wanted to show in its true nature, this may not be it's really not the way to go with something. But if you're just taking your images and using them for art purposes, then there's nothing wrong with doing this type of processing and giving your picture that little extra oomph. That, yes, you could do this with Photoshop, but it would probably take you hours, and who knows how to use all those crazy things in Photoshop anyway. That's what the plugins are all about. It's giving you something to use that will make a big difference in your image in just a short amount of time. So I recommend that you give Topaz Glow a try. It is made by Topaz Labs. It's only been out for a couple of months, and for me it's been an awesome addition to the tools that we have that we get with all these different plugins and the things that we can do with Lightroom and Photoshop. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to hit OK, and it takes a minute to process it because it's made some big changes here. And we're going to take it back into Photoshop, and you see I initially had created that layer. Now if I feel like this is a little bit too much, this particular plugin does not create its own second layer. Some of the others actually will create a layer when you click on it. For example, the Nick software down here in this little drive. When I click on one of those, it will actually create its own layer in Photoshop. But the Topaz programs do not, and so I go ahead and I create a layer just in case what I bring over is just not exactly what I want, because then I can either use the blend modes in Photoshop, which probably don't work that great, or I can use the opacity slider. And so I can back off a little bit more on this if I feel like I've gotten a little too carried away with this. But I actually, because this is sort of a fantasy picture anyway, I kind of like it the way I've got it from the plug-in. So at this point, what I usually do is I go ahead and flatten the picture, and this is one of many ways to do that. I go ahead and bring up my NIX software, go ahead and put a little sharpening on it with the output sharpener, which takes a minute, and a little bit of sharpening. And then I go ahead and wait for that to finish and close that down. And I'm ready to save this back into good old Lightroom. Once again, thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at lynwizicki@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching.